Okay, here's part 2. So in the late morning, we had a really high yield session about bone health. And as it turns out, the status of your bone density as you enter into menopause has implications towards the age at which you may develop osteoporosis later in life. So if you have a lower bone density going into menopause, you might become osteoporotic closer to an average age of 64. And it therefore makes no sense to start screening at age 65. However, doctors often misinterpret the screening guidelines because if you do have risk factors for early osteoporosis, you should actually be starting screening earlier than age 65. So the key here is to know your individual risk and advocate for yourself and discuss it with your doctor if you might benefit from earlier screening. And I'll include a link in my bio to the FRAX calculator if you want to use it to see what sorts of things might put you at elevated risk. Another important point is that although most women can safely continue hormone therapy indefinitely, you can't forget about your bones. So if you choose to discontinue hormone therapy at some point, you might want to be switching to something that will be protective for your bones, such as a bisphosphonate. So you want to touch base with your doctor around that. Strategies, to mitigate your risk. And good news for anyone out there who's on an SSRI or proton pump inhibitor, we have learned that these medications do somewhat increase the risk of a fracture, but it is not because of a loss of bone density. The actual cause is unclear, unfortunately. Now, hip fractures are the 4th leading cause of death and disability in the US and Europe, so we do need to take this very, very seriously. And we did get the answer to some age-old questions. So does weightlifting improve bone density? Yes, but only with very heavy weights. I'm talking like 80 pounds. And this was according to the Lift More study, if you want to check it out. No, unfortunately, there's no evidence that testosterone or weighted vests improves bone density at this time. Now, we also had some incredible talks about progestins and progesterone, and it was stressed once again that there are no FDA or Health Canada approved formulations of topical or injectable forms of progesterone, with the exception of the combined patch, which has a progestin, and this is called Estalis in Canada and Combi Patch in the US. We all know breakthrough bleeding is annoying and a common concern for women on hormone therapy. But the good news is that for at least the first 6 months, if you're using an approved and proven regimen, it's okay to watch and wait, but after 6 months, you should have that bleeding evaluated. And in Australia, the Mirena IUD is approved for 5 years for endometrial protection in hormone therapy, and there is no evidence to date that it increases the risk of breast cancer, which is great news because it is the most effective way to control heavy menstrual bleeding across the reproductive spectrum. Now, we don't know yet if it can be used longer than 5 years for uterine protection, so stay tuned for future research.